Welcome everybody to the Virtual Design Master live review of challenge number 2. It's another big night for everybody, and thank you very much if you're joining us live, and if you're watching this on video, thank you again for watching. It's a pretty amazing competition we've got going on. We've had a lot of really great things that are happening in the competition, and coming out of VMworld, obviously it's been an exciting time. So live on our broadcast right now, we have Chris Wall from our judges panel, as well as Josh Atwell, who are going to sit in today. Unfortunately, Scott and Mike were unable to attend because of some challenges. On the panel of our participants, we have Akmal Wahid and Joe Graziano. Our third competitor, Jonathan Frappier, was unable to attend because it's his anniversary. So even though he's gunning for the position of Virtual Design Master, we did give him a bye on having to sit live. So he sent over a video broadcast of his defense, and ultimately the design is going to have to speak for itself. So that's how things are going to go tonight. So anyways, but without further ado, I guess the first thing we need to do, other than thank everybody who's being here and who's watching, is we want to thank the people that are helping to put this together. So my co-host and cohort, Angelo Luciani, who is helping me to lead this out and bringing this great community to us. Thank you, Angelo, for coming out.
Thanks, Eric.
And of course, to our fine folks at all of our sponsors, most importantly, because they're the ones that are keeping this alive and that are bringing great prizes to our competitors. We are brought to you by baremetalcloud.com, who are bringing a super big package of $1,500 prize for the Virtual Design Master in cloud time in their private cloud area. So it's going to be really cool. As well as Train Signal, now presented by Pluralsight. So even better than what we had before with a full year subscription to Train Signal. Now that's being expanded out, including the entire Pluralsight catalog. So it just goes from better to even more better. And of course, if you follow any of the stuff that we do, then you're going to be familiar with Chris Wall's vCloud Director course that's on there, and I can tell you it's amazing. I know I've taken it myself, and it's made the difference in me going live just by watching that course alone. So thank you, Chris, and thank you to Pluralsight for putting that all together. And on the mobile app, if you're watching us on mobile, then that's great. If you're not, then you should be doing so. So please go to virtualdesignmaster.com and you can download our app through the Google Play Store or through iTunes in order to get onto your iOS device, and that's presented by radicalio.com. So Ian and his team at Radical.io have done a lot of work to bring a great app for us. You can follow along the entire competition as we go through. So make sure you go there, download the app, rate it through the appropriate stores, because that's a great way to feedback to us on how we're doing with things and how the app is going, and it helps to really give credence to what Ian and his team at Radical.io have done for us. So without further ado, I'll bring this over to Angelo. And Angelo, if you want to tell us about Challenge 2 with BCP, what are some of the really hot button things that you want to see from our competitors as we walk into this review?
Well, looking over the designs, it was interesting to see how people sort of dealt with the constraints that we gave them, and it's interesting to see how, as we move to Challenge 3, who can really build on what they've done in the past to see how successful their designs were in the past. So that's one of the interesting things that I've seen so far. So let's get right into it. Let's start with Akmal. I'm going to give you 3 minutes to defend your design. You can bring up anything that you may think you want to highlight that was in your design that you think needs to be explained or expanded upon. So you have 3 minutes starting now.
Hi, good morning, everyone. So as there were 2 requirements, the first requirement was to have a planned migration of 5,000 virtual servers from the primary data center to secondary and the tertiary data center. So my primary data center has 2 clusters with 2,500 virtual servers each. So I'll have my first cluster migrated to the secondary data center and second cluster migrated to the third data center. To achieve that, I'm using Site Recovery Manager. So I'll have Site Recovery Manager on the primary and the secondary side, both paired in active passive mode. So I'll have protection groups and I'll migrate 2,500 virtual servers or the first cluster to the secondary side. Once the planned migration is done, I'll confirm if the virtual machines are powered on successfully. Once that is done, I'll unpair the connection between the primary and the secondary side. And the second step is to have the pairing between the primary and the tertiary data center, again in the active passive mode. And I'll have the planned migration of 2,000 virtual servers again from the primary side to the tertiary side. So with that, I'm fulfilling the first requirement where I'm having a planned migration of all the 5,000 virtual servers. Now, the second requirement is to have a disaster recovery and business continuity plan for the complete environment. So for that, I'll have, again, Site Recovery Manager between secondary and the tertiary side paired in bidirectional mode so that both the sites are protected, and at the same time, both the sites are acting recovery sites for each other. So this solution would provide the protection for all the 6,500 virtual servers. Now, for the view environment and the workspace for application delivery, I'll have a additional virtual center on the tertiary side. So the first virtual center, the one virtual center would be managing the complete environment, that is the tertiary data center. The second virtual center would be only dedicated to the view and the workspace environment. Now I'll have a separate a protection group for the view environment and all the management machines which are associated with the view and workspace in a single protection group. So during the failover or during the planned migration of only the view environment, all the management VMs associated with the view will be migrated to the recovery side or the protector side. And there will be a little bit of manual work where after the migration you have to connect and confirm the connectivity of the view, and then do the link. You take a new snapshot and deploy it again. So that's it.
Okay, great, Akmal. That's great. You finished just under 3 minutes, similar to last week. So that's awesome. Well done. I'll start with Josh. Do you have any questions or comments for Akmal? Josh, we can't. Yep. No,
no audio for Josh.
No audio. We can't hear you.
All right. Well,
let's
switch gears. We're going to go over to Chris for a second.
Yeah, let's switch over to Chris real quick. Chris,
Okay.
any comments or questions for Akmal?
I thought about just mouthing without making noise to fool you guys. That stuff wasn't working too. Like,
you can't mess with us. Can't mess with us.
So I noticed you call out specifically that view is not something that you can put within the scope of SRM. So maybe you could talk a little more about how you're protecting the view environment itself from a DR scenario.
Sure. To my knowledge, till 5.1 and earlier, the native support wasn't there for Vue. So now recently, how we can achieve here is now. So shall I talk about my environment, the changes what I have made in the for Vue? So
Right.
In my tertiary side, there was only one virtual center. So I have added a new virtual center. That new virtual center, so the procedure I have mentioned in the design document. So what I want to achieve with that is to have a dedicated virtual center only for the Vue environment, so that Vue is associated with the virtual center. Now, when I want to have a recovery plan for the Vue environment, I need to have the complete set of management appliances or all the management VMs associated with the Vue at the recovery side. So I cannot have virtual center and protected side and the Vue running on the recovery side. So I need to migrate. I need to have a planned migration of the complete set of management VMs associated with the Vue. So I'll have a separate dedicated VM that is a virtual center for view, which is only associated with view. So when I'm having a protection group for the view environment, I'll include Composer, a SQL server, which is associated with a view and view connection server. I'll have all these migrated or plan migrated to the recovery side. So once that is migrated, I'll connect to the view environment, and I'll make sure all the components are up and running. And then I'll have the composer to take a new snapshot and have the same kind of deployment what I had earlier. So, I mean, to my knowledge and experience, I cannot have the complete view replicated here, but I can have just the management components at the recovery side, and then I can get the complete view desktops environment again. So there would be a little bit of manual work.
So you're using SRM to protect kind of the management of the view environment, and then once that comes over to the third site, you'll just kind of rebuild the view environment from a desktop perspective.
Rebuild in this, yeah. So complete management would be protected with the site recovery manager, but the deployment of virtual desktops would be a manual work.
Okay.
Okay. Josh? No, I don't. We don't have audio. No. Yeah, right. Sure.
2 words. First word.
Exactly.
3 syllables. Yeah. He's gonna do a 1 word on me, and it's gonna be 1 finger.
Yeah. Sounds like. Okay. No, that's right.
All right.
So, Chris, was there anything that jumped out at you in Akmal's design that stood out that was really well done? So, you highlighted some stuff. You had some questions around the view. What in his BCP layout really stood out as being sort of in line with the great work that you did in the first challenge with presenting the data center, and being able to take that to the next level and really well document, how he's going to do the recovery process?
I like the fact that you're taking advantage of the fact that you have NetApp filers, so you're just kind of using kind of native technology there to get the replication going between the sites. So that's a good thing to take advantage of what you got there. I think that's a good way to, I guess, provide replication relatively native to the array. And I also liked, I also got a notepad there, KISS.
We got there, KISS.
Keeping it simple. Yeah. The other part was the definition of both what an RPO and RTO is, as well as an establishment of what that would be. All too often, designs tend to skip over the fact that you need to offer SLAs, RPOs, RTOs, etc., in order to really enforce the different tiers that data has to be, and not everything is tier 1. So I like that you called that out.
That's great. That's a great summary, Chris. I think we'll go to Joe, Eric.
Yeah. Okay, Joe. So now is your opportunity. You've got.
Yeah. So.
Do you hear me now?
Yes, we do.
All right, there you go. We're gonna. Sorry, Joe. You get to sweat it out for 1 more second here.
Sorry.
He's gangster style, sideways. Oh, there we go.
Yeah. I had to go
great.
iPad. The laptop wasn't cutting it. So, yeah, sorry about that. I'm clearly technology challenged. So real quick, Akmal, I will say excellent detail on the protection mapping and how the resources align. I was really pleased to see that you were addressing that, because obviously that's critical when you're looking at how you're going to protect these various tiers, and to Chris's point, how your RPO and your RTO kind of align with that. So I was really glad to see that. One thing I did want to hear some elaboration on was between sites 2 and 3 with the bidirectional data protection there. Can you elaborate a little bit more on what you were doing there and the value you were getting out of that?
Absolutely. So now my complete so secondary data center would have 3,500 virtual servers. Tertiary data center is running with 1,500 virtual servers plus 3,000 virtual desktops and a workspace for application delivery. So to provide a protection and to provide a recovery plan, I had to go with the bidirectional option in the site recovery manager. So with this, the differences would be both the sites would be protected sites as well as a recovery site for each other. So on the site recovery manager, I would have both protection group as well as the recovery plans at both the ends. So usually in primary and secondary, I just have protected groups at the protected sites and recovery plan at the recovery site. So here, both the sites will have both the things, protected groups and the recovery plans, and I would have all the additional storage and additional servers, which would be in a separate cluster. Using the DPM, I'll have all those clusters in standby mode. Whenever there is a requirement, that those servers will be powered on, and then it can be used as the protection or for recovery purpose. So the replication will be bidirectional. So the all the machines from the tertiary side would be replicated on the secondary side, and all the machines from the secondary side would be replicated to the tertiary side. So the bidirectional replication would replicate all the protected virtual machines, and that's how I would achieve the business continuity for that.
Okay. Yeah, I just had a little confusion. It almost felt like the primary site just disappeared on the plan, as if there may not be a restoration back to that point, as if the zombies had completely taken over that site and there was going to be no recovery. So I just was looking for a little clarification. Thank you.
That's great. Thanks, Akmil. Thanks, guys. So let's move on to Joe.
Okay,
I know Joe's been sweating it out for 20 more minutes, so here come the tough questions, Joe. So, Joe, you'll have 3 minutes to defend your design and to highlight anything you'd like from your design starting now.
Well, my design was kind of simple. I wish I would have had a little more experience with Site Recovery Manager. I did not throw that in at this point because I still have a lot to learn. I went a little bit old school with more regular backups using the sync sort application, and with my pillar, I'm actually using Falcon Store to replicate all of my data between the data centers. I did lay out in the DR plan the addition of hardware, network, and storage at the tertiary and secondary data centers to accommodate the backups and the replicas. So basically, when and if the primary data center gets taken over, the tertiary and secondary data centers will basically go there. We'll kick off restores using their instant virtualization so that we can get all of our servers up and running. And then in the BCP plan, I did kind of lay out the plan for retaking the data center, building it back up, and eventually migrating everything back over. In a nutshell, that's what we do now in my company, zombies excluded, and I think that's about it.
We call them project managers, but shh. So Joe, anything else? You still got a few seconds left there. Let's.
I think I've covered it.
All right. Oh, now we've lost Angelo's sound.
I did not mute Angelo.
We did not mute Angelo there.
Oh, I'm sorry.
There we go.
Sorry about that. Josh, we'll start with you, Josh. Any questions or comments for Joe?
Yeah, first, Joe, I have to say that I've thoroughly enjoyed, and I'm looking to my left at my notes, so I'm not like being weird here. I've thoroughly enjoyed your creativity in how you've approached and really made the this scenario feel more real. I almost feel like it needs to be a book now. And the biggest thing I got out of this, other than my sheer concern about firearms in the data center when you reclaim it, I very much appreciated that you mentioned quite a bit on how the organization should be structured when handling an event. Now, I think that's one of those lost elements in the design that, it's great that you have all these things in place to help replicate and keep the business running and identify what needs to be done when. And the fact that, and I've seen this go poorly, the fact that you've actually outlined whose responsibilities are what the priority of everything is, who's responsible for that priority. It was unique in the submissions to a high degree, and I think it provided a great deal of value. On the flip side, I would have liked to have seen a lot more technical specifics about how those things would be accomplished. The fact that you mentioned that you have a lack of experience with Site Recovery Manager, and you utilize some things that were perhaps a little bit older tactic for performing business continuity, disaster recovery. But here's the thing: you're running hardware from 2008, right? So I don't consider that a negative per se. And the key is with any backup recovery, business continuity thing, it's all about keeping the business running or getting the business back online. So, it seems like your plan would accomplish those objectives. The one thing I'd like to see more is on the technical, which leads me to one question. With the Oracle device that you had in there, I looked at the technical note that went with it, and it did make mention of its multi-site, multi-hop capabilities. So perhaps can you speak a little bit to were you going to utilize that in your solution, or that functionality, or can you elaborate on that functionality, how it might play out?
I don't know that I could elaborate too much about it. I mean, the way I had planned was more of a failover scenario where we were doing the backups, we were doing the replication, but not necessarily having things hot in all three locations. Each site would be running the servers and the applications that they would need. I mean, we were planning on having Exchange, SharePoint, and the SQL databases kind of clustered across the three data centers, so that in the case of Exchange, we could immediately bring up the DAGs in the secondary and tertiary sites. So a little bit of that, but I'm not too familiar with the actual hot capabilities of the pillar system. So does that help?
Yeah, no, that's fine. I mean, that's fair. Because it wasn't specifically outlined. That's why I asked the question to see if that was something. And you brought up another point that I wasn't entirely clear whether it was being utilized, was whether or not the applications were intended to be active in multiple data centers, so that you have that application high availability and can handle a site failure but still maintain functionality.
Sure.
That's great, Josh. Thanks. Chris, any comments or questions for Joe?
So in the Restoring the Data Center Zombies Rise document, there is a call out stating that there's some steps there where the owner is the SRM/DR team. So I'm a little confused. Is SRM actually being implemented, or is that just something that got left in the design?
It might have been something that I had in the design when I was trying to think about Site Recovery Manager. So no, in the scheme of my design, it's definitely not using Site Recovery Manager. So that was probably just an oversight.
Okay, that clears up a little bit. I'll echo Josh's sentiments about some more technical notes around, how you're going to achieve certain RPOs and RTOs with the technology beyond a high level. But I will say, I don't want to just regurgitate that. I do like the equipment list on your emergency kit. So what I think is interesting in this challenge, and that I think you represented well in this document, is that really, if we're talking kind of site failure, within the realm of this kind of fictitious environment, it's going to be a zombie attack, most likely, something that you can kind of plan for. And so while it is funny that you have things like axes and guns and stuff like that, I think it does also realistically meet some of the requirements of the actual disaster you're trying to avoid. So it's funny, but I also think it's actually pretty smart to prepare for a disaster that you know may occur quite high on the possibility list. So kudos.
Thanks.
That's great, Chris. So Chris and Josh, thanks so much for the insights and questions. I can sort of I kind of sense from the participants that they gained from these insights on how to improve their design solutions. Design solutions will be published tomorrow, so everyone can have a chance to review them and go over them as well. And we also encourage folks to add comments at the virtualdesignmaster.com site under each design, whether you have questions or you have some insights on the design. So we want this to be an exchange between the community and the participants and the judges. So this is a broader community effort that we're hoping to get people engaged in. So just something to keep in mind when we publish tomorrow. So with that, I'll flip it back to Eric.
All right. Well, I guess what we'll do, in Jonathan's absence, of course, because he isn't able to defend in person, he wanted to highlight a few things, which is around some of his choices on, he went sort of product specific on a few things. He, like a lot of us, we haven't had an opportunity to actually do real live implementations at this size and scale. Although we sort of touched on environments that are in the hundreds and thousands of virtual guests, this was a little different to do a full design and actually price it out and really think about that recovery scenario. So maybe Josh and Chris, we'll start with Josh. If you can add some quick notes on Jonathan's in particular, so that he can have those, so he can take those offline for sure.
Yeah, let's talk about the guy that's not here. Can't defend himself. No, actually, Jonathan, I know you'll be listening on this. I was very impressed with your design, and in particular the general application awareness, because when looking at performing business continuity or DR, you have to appreciate and understand the applications that are being protected or being brought online. And you definitely put in some time to outline what those applications were, what their requirements would be, and what the plan of action to do that. So, that with the great physical design that you did in phase one, kind of really paints a very solid picture of what the new organization that our billionaire philanthropist is providing. So, was really happy to see that. And secondly, the fact that on the third site, your tertiary site, you're talking about how your VDI instance was warm. It was there to provide a point of access for the support team to be able to get access to the various components. So even if you lost the primary or secondary site, you still had VDI available in the tertiary site. So I was pleased to see that, because that was a thoughtful inclusion into the design.
Perfect. Chris, any thoughts on Jonathan's submission?
It's definitely neat to see three different minds approaching the same problem in three different ways. We had SRM, we had kind of a more physical restoration DR plan, and then this one we've got Zerto kind of enters the scene for the first time. So three different solutions to the same problem. I enjoy seeing that. So when I read through the design, the one thing that I was kind of missing was a little bit more of the architecture around exactly how this all puts together. There's some pretty good high-level networking type schematics, but as a customer, if I were the billion-dollar man financing all this, I would probably want a little bit deeper dive into exactly how this all fits together from a logical and conceptual perspective. That said, though, I saw a couple kernels of gold in there that I wanted to call out specifically. In 2.5, there's an SLA definition that says, I made sure to pull it up, no service levels were defined, so we chose one. That's actually very realistic. That's pretty real world. Most people don't have a clue what their SLA is, so rather than leaving that blank and just saying I don't know, pick the number, and I think that's the right way to go. At least try to get some kind of baseline, and didn't chose a unattainable number like 9 nines. It's 3 nines, which is acceptable. So I like that, and I also like the fact that all of the different applications were classified. So again, this kind of pays some tribute to other designs that we've talked about this evening. Rather than kind of lumping things in, okay, I want to recover my data center, which is a rather large problem to tackle, and not every application is the same. It's broken down the applications into really 5 different tiers, which goes above and beyond the typical gold, silver, bronze. So I liked seeing how each tier was broken down, what the RPO would be, what application fits into that slot. I think that would be difficult information to get off the cusp of the customer. It would take a while, but it's important information to have so you can properly plan both DR and BCP and the pricing that goes around it. So good job.
Very cool.
Good.
All right. Well, obviously we've had, as you said, 3 very amazing designs that have been put together. 3 different and distinctly different designs in how they were attacked. Products were spread across the board. Hardware, software was touched on in every one. So thank you to all 3 of the contestants. Now, of course, we are lucky enough, because in the way that things have rolled with our competitors, we aren't sending anyone home today. But however, what we do want to do is highlight the sort of the top ones. Last time around we looked at some of the really key features, and Jonathan came up with a bit of a bonus point on some of his design. So I'm going to put some pressure on our judges here and say, Josh and Chris, if you had to take one of these 3 designs and say, it just stood out, and maybe a real quick, few seconds on what stood out and what you really liked about each design. So, or one particular design, Josh.
Oh yeah, let me go first.
No pressure.
Yeah, well, that's the penance I have to pay for being absent on the last one. So I want to start by saying that one of the things that I enjoyed most by looking at the 3 designs was that I truly believe if we put the 3 of you guys in a room together and said solve this problem, all bases would be covered, because the approach that each contestant took was slightly different. And I went back and reviewed the video on the objective for this one was, provide a business continuity DR plan and discuss the financials and the things that were involved. And while I liked elements of all 3, I felt like Akmal provided the most technically designed solution that addressed how these, and he did the protection groups. It wasn't as deep on the application layer, but with respect to how he technically laid out his solution, I thought I actually had to think a lot more on and look at what he was doing. So I would say that stood out to me out of the 3 when it comes to DR.
Excellent. Chris, what do you have to say on what do you think really stood out if you had to take one and put it up on the top of the pile today?
Well, I don't want to just use the same one that Josh did. I think he covered some very relevant points. So I won't disagree with Josh. I think he's got it right on base. But I would also give a lot of.
I love that he says, "I'm not going to argue with Josh," and just drops the mic.
Yeah, sorry, I really hate the Google Hangout. It loves to drop me randomly with error 21.
Yeah.
So if anyone out there knows what error 21 means,
it is not me muting you.
Yeah, you only mute yourself. So. No, I wanted to give a call out to Joe for his design. I know that it wasn't quite as technical as I hoped to see on it, but the amount of detail around recovery, run books. I hate writing run books, so kudos for writing all that run book stuff. That's quite necessary. No one really likes to do it. So the fact that you have all that in there, as far as who is going to have to deal with each different problem around the recovery, what the steps are. That shows a lot of thought to go into. All right, if I've actually declared a disaster, and everyone's running around with their head like a chicken with their head cut off. What do I have to do? Who has to do it? And in what order? So kudos for that.
I just hope I get to drive the tank.
Exactly.
If I can just jump in here real quick, Eric, I'm looking at the competitors, and they Joe and Akmal look so intense right now, and I think, guys, you can actually breathe a sigh of relief, guys. Like no one's getting booted off. You got some great insight from Chris and Josh today. Just ride that for a few hours before we throw you your next challenge.
And I guess the pressure falls on Angela on this one because with our missing a third judge, Angela gets to be the decider on who's going to take our top spot this week. So Angelo, we've seen 1 point go to Akmal, we've seen 1 point go to Joe. You have the choice of laying down a tiebreaker, or you could go with representing the fellow who didn't make it tonight. What do you think, Angela? What stood out for you, and what kind of goes to the top of the pile today?
Yeah, I hope this doesn't sound like a cop-out, but I agree with Josh and Chris. Akmal, I thought, had the detail that, within the time frame provided, the detail that we needed for the challenge. So I agree with those guys.
All right. So
I would love to see these guys work together and just bam, just put the whole plan together. Get Joe's detail, Akmal's technical detail, John's application awareness. Man, you got a full package.
And that's the cool thing. So Akmal, congratulations this week. Oh, there we go. This week you get to take home the #1 spot. So you get bonus points heading into the next one. Uh-oh, have I lost my video here?
No, you're still there.
There we go.
I see you.
Whew.
We should let the participants know that next week somebody will, not to add any more pressure to you folks, but next week someone will, like I said a few weeks before, get V-motioned off, but somebody will get not moved to the next round. So keep that in mind.
Yeah, and so Angela brings up a great point. As we've come into this point in the competition, it's been a tight competition all the way through, and you guys have put together some amazing products. We came into this with nothing, with a bare bones requirements document, which turned into a massive plan. Taking that massive plan, moving it to the next level, and doing business continuity and disaster recovery for it is really intense. Now, our true virtual design master has all of those skills, and you guys have shown that. Now, what you've got to do is you've got to take this next step, and you've got to do something amazing, because the virtual design master is all about using next generation technologies, using products that are out there today, and moving them into sort of next generation methodologies. So we've came out of VMworld, and there was a lot of really big announcements. GA announcement for the VCHS service with 2 more data centers in the US. So for those folks who aren't using the vCloud hybrid service already, now you can, and it's full general availability. We've been lucky as vExpert, some of us had access to it. In the beta program, it's really cool. So as we head into Challenge 3, this is going to be really big, because in this challenge, our competitors have to create automation workflows in a product of your choice for 3 specific scenarios. And you're going to get a paper on this tomorrow, but just to lay this out right now. So the first scenario you're going to have is you have to have a server deployment into a virtual data center, not just 1 server, but 2 servers. One has to be Windows, and one can be an alternate OS. It doesn't matter which OS, but obviously the top choices are going to be either like a Red Hat, CentOS, Ubuntu, or some Linux alternative, but they have to be 2 distinctly different operating systems. So you have to be able to automatically provision a server into an environment using whatever tool or technique you want. Next, the contestants have to be able to script the deployment of a web server into each of those server environments, and also be able to publish a Hello World app And scripting language is all up to you. It can be whatever your language of choice is in order to get that spun up. So each of your servers has to be running a live Hello World app at the end of it all. And all the work is going to be done locally in your own lab. So that's the beauty part, is you've got your opportunity to work within the comfort of your environment, whether it's a public lab or your home lab or whatever it's going to be. So you're going to take that whole process and build that. You can also do it if you want, right up into a public workflow into a cloud environment that you've got today. And then finally, you have to create an orchestration workflow to publish an application or a server into a cloud environment like vCloud, the vCloud hybrid service, AWS, Rackspace, or any public or hybrid cloud deployment. So not just being able to deploy it into a traditional data center, but you have to create the workflow to publish it to a public or hybrid cloud alternative. And the work is going to be done, as I said, in your local lab. You can use vCenter Orchestrator, you can use Puppet, you can use Chef, whatever tools you have that are in your toolbox, or whatever tools you can put into your toolbox between now and the delivery date. So it's not just a scripting challenge, it's about understanding that scripting has to go to that next level. You're not just writing a shell script or writing a deployment workflow or a typical run book, but we're talking about idempotent, stateful orchestration tasks. And these are really key features that you've got to know when you're moving into the cloud deployment. And the focus is taking this and documenting your runbooks and your manifests so that you can illustrate what your orchestration does, and you're going to illustrate it for the judges using a screen recording. So if you don't have access to a screen recording tool, we'll set you up with that so you can go through this, because we actually want to see the actual workflow in place, as well as the PDF or Visio or whatever your output is in order to document your workflows. And then for the cloud deployment, the same thing. You're going to provide the workflow documentation, but it's not necessary to run the full deployment unless you actually have a cloud service provider. But you can't fool us. We do have access to a lot of things, so we're going to know what the secrets are and what the really key features we're going to look for when we're looking at what your cloud deployment workflow is. And here's a little hint. Be prepared for a vCloud target, because in preparation for your final challenge, which is going to be brought to you by baremetalcloud.com, where the final 2 contestants are going to battle it out in their own dedicated hosting environment at Bare Metal Cloud for the final challenge. So you're going to have physical hardware in their data center that you're going to have access to build up your cloud environment, and then your final challenge is going to be done in that environment. And that's going to be for the final 2 guys that make it through this. So we've got a big challenge ahead of us. So hopefully we can see some really cool stuff come out. So Angelo, what do you think about what we have heading into Challenge 3?
Yeah, this is a major task. This next challenge is a major task for you guys. Good luck. And if, of course, if there's any guidance or anything, reach out to us. Ping us. We'll see what we can provide. But we really want you guys to excel at this next challenge. So, and I know Joe dropped off, but he'll watch the recording. I think the zombies got his laptop or the gremlins or something. So, but good luck, guys.
So, Chris, when you're looking for this kind of a challenge and this kind of a response, what's a really key feature that you think these guys need to work towards?
Oh man, that's a good question. Well, since you've opened it up to kind of any software tool, I think it's really going to be about how easy is it to use this configuration. Does it require a script that calls a script that calls another one? Is it more turnkey? So I'll be really interested to see kind of the simple level of deployment, as well as it's really easy to design something that's automated and then walk away, and then the other poor sod that walks in has to manage it. So hopefully good commenting of the code or the automation process itself, so that it can be something that can be passed along to another member in case you're eaten by the zombies.
Josh, obviously automation is in your toolkit, and in fact, you want to talk for a second before you can talk about your tip, and then take a few seconds and let's talk about the new book that's coming out and the chapter you participated in.
Sure. So I'm finding it's fun that I'll lead Chris follows. He repeats what I say, vice versa. This is my major tip right here. Keep it simple, right? You gotta, think about what you're trying to accomplish. Don't overcomplicate it. My tip there is that anytime you're developing automation, scripting, things like that, you'll get 90% of the work done in the first 20% of time you spend. So I'm going to be relatively forgiving about bugs and little nuances and whether or not you check every little thing. But the key thing for me is that as you go to develop this automation and these components, to acknowledge that you recognize that assumptions might be made, things that you might need to check. I'm going to be looking for comments to say, this is core functionality, but here's the things that I would include to check and things that I know I need to be aware of. So that would be one thing that I'm going to be really keen on. And then thanks Eric for mentioning the book. So last week at VMworld, we did announce that Mastering vSphere 5.5 will be released this fall. I believe it's going to be the last week of October, and I was fortunate enough to act as a contributing author on the book, and I updated the chapter on automation. Did really heavy on Power CLI, trying to make all the different automation tools that VMware makes available just a little more accessible and kind of step people through how to get started with them. So look for it. You can pre-order it now on Amazon, and hopefully everybody will get some value out of that chapter.
Absolutely.
Great.
Well, it's another week has come, another week has gone, and we've seen some amazing things come down. So Akmal, we want to say thank you very much. As I said, you got your +1 this week for taking out top prize, and congratulations on that. And we look forward to seeing some great stuff coming into the next one. How are you feeling about going into orchestration and automation?
Sure. I'm feeling really good to talk to Josh and Chris and getting the feedback. So I'll try my best, and I have to learn a lot of things about automation. So that's my weak point. So I have enough time, so I'll go through the resources and see what best I can do.
Excellent.
Great.
Yeah, so let me throw in to that point, Akmal, is that utilize the community. Right. I mean, there's tons of stuff out there. I'm not saying because I'll find out real quick if you just copy and paste something, but it's there's no penalty in finding that other people have done good work and then you making that more your own, and that goes for all the contestants. I mean, it's not likely it's going to be exactly what you need, but I definitely would look to see that you make it specific to our zombie apocalypse scenario.
Angel, I'm going to let you take us out tonight. So what do you have?
Yeah. So again, this was a great episode. Again, you can breathe a sigh of relief. No one got I hate to say bounced off this week. So that's great. We got a lot of great insight, a lot of great tips from Josh and Chris this week. What I'd like the contestants to do is really chew on what the judges said today, because there's a lot of little nuggets in there that you can really pick up on for your next design challenge. So with that, thanks guys, thanks for making the time, and looking forward to our next episode. You'll find all the details on virtualdesignmaster.com. Look for the design solutions tomorrow, and please comment, or if you're looking for some feedback, put it down. This is a community effort, and we want to help the community. So with that, thank you, and we'll sign off.
Thanks, everybody, and thank you to all our sponsors, baremetalcloud.com, radicalio.com, and, of course, trainsignal.com, now presented as Pluralsight. So thank you, and we will see you all at the next challenge review.
Cool.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.